Hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion on the Western Pacific Regional Office of the WHO. And I am joined today by Samsul from Move Malaysia and Peter from Vapers Philippines. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on the Western Pacific Regional Office and the WHO and COP9. We are joined tonight with Sam from Move HRA in Malaysia and Peter from Vapers Philippines. So, guys, welcome.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Let's get this show on the road. I am also, so people who do not know, I am also one of the directors of AVCA in New Zealand, which is also in the Western Pacific Regional Office. So let me get the show on the road. As our viewers may or may not be aware, the Conference of Parties on Tobacco Control is going to be taking place from the 8th to the 12th of November. And they have stated that they will not have any direct debate or discussion about safer nicotine products at that meeting. However, we in Western Pacific are aware that they did have a regional tobacco control meeting and we're discussing items of note. Now, our region is interesting because in our region we have the renegades. And what I mean by that is the advice is to ban or severely restrict safer nicotine products. And in all three of our countries, that is not the case. So I would like to start off with Sam. He has an announcement of some things that have just recently transpired in Malaysia, and I'd like him to explain it. So, Sam, can you do that for us, please?
Right. Thank you. How are you, Nancy?
I'm good. How are you?
I am excellent. How are you,
Awesome.
Peter?
Good, good, thanks.
All right. Let me just introduce myself. My name is Samsul Kamal from Move HRA from Malaysia. And excuse me if you see me smiling all the way throughout this session because we do have something interesting to talk about. And it just happened yesterday, and there's a lot of things to unpack. I've been a vapor for 8 years now, and I've not touched a stick of cigarettes ever since from the first day of or when I start vaping. And so, in order for me to explain what's happening now in Malaysia, is also good for me to somehow share with you guys. You know, the journey that we have been on is it's not been easy. It's been 8 years now, and it all started off when the government made an announcement that they are going to ban vape. That's how it all started for us here in Malaysia. So a group of friends got together and we said that, wait a minute, this is important to us. This is important to a lot of people. This is not just about business; it's about saving lives. I think we got to, get together and do something. And from that point on, we got organized. We get to know Nancy, which has been a great help, and CAPHRA as well. And we move initially in a very disorganized way, but now we are very organized, and we know, what we are doing actually. And to get to what Nancy mentioned earlier on, it was just yesterday that the budget for Malaysia was announced, and interestingly enough, one of the things that was mentioned is the taxation on vape liquid with nicotine. So that's a step closer for us to get regulation, to get for it to be approved. We've been at it for 8 years now. And from, I think, about a year ago, it was announced that they are going to regulate vape liquid without nicotine. And that's not something we want. But now they have approved the taxation for the vape liquid with nicotine. So I think, as what we have said earlier on, it's been baby steps from the beginning, but it seems that now the baby has grown up to be a toddler and now very fast running as a teenager. and everything will be implemented by January 2022. And there is where we are at right now. But mind you, the announcement has only been about the taxation of the nicotine liquid with nicotine, and also for devices. That's as far as it got. But I guess it's still a big thing. It is still a huge thing for us.
It is. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank
I'm
you.
so proud of you guys. Um, Peter, what's going on in the Philippines? Because you were the one that was coming up ahead of after New Zealand. It was you. So,
Well, currently, right now, the our Congress is still in recess, and they will resume work um, around the second week of November. So we're still hoping that we'll get the same headways like what Malaysia has gotten. So we're still um, crossing our fingers. We've got very positive feedback from the interpellation with the Senate. We just have to wait. Hopefully, when they resume for work on the second week of November, we'll hear something with regards to the developments of the VNP bill here in the Philippines.
excellent. Here's a thought. I'm wondering, and this is something that I've been wondering, and I'm wondering if you guys are actually having the same thoughts, is, the Global Tobacco Report came out from the WHO, basically telling everybody to ban everything or to severely restrict it. And yet we're all three of us sitting in countries that are, like I said, regulating or going to be regulating shortly. How do you think, I'm proud of my country. I'm proud of New Zealand for what they've done. It's not perfect, but it beats what it could have been. Okay, and we all know what's going on in Australia. Okay, which is also in Western Pacific, and India, which is in Southeast Asia. But how do you think our representatives how they're going to be taken or perceived, or actually represent us when they do attend this virtual COP9? Have you any ideas?
Uh, if I can go ahead of Samsul, I think I hope I'm wrong, but all indications point that my government, or at least the Department of Health, will vote for a ban of nicotine products. I take it as it is simply because I find no cogent reason why there are certain groups who were invited to join the COP9 coming November. Well, first and foremost, the country only has one vote with respect to the regulations. But again, for some strange reasons, five organizations who are clearly biased and has already advocated for banning vape products in time immemorial has been included in the delegates. I really don't know why. So taking it from there, I think our local Department of Health is already gearing up towards their vote and really putting their allies in there to make sure that when they vote for maybe banning, they have a lot of support. That's just the way I look at it, Nancy.
Do you think it's going to derail what you guys have been working for, or do you think it'll just go through
Uh,
anyway?
I I don't think so. Although I don't know that for a fact. The reason being is the local Department of Health here in the Philippines is just riddled with so much corruption right now, as it is. Okay,
Yeah.
there's let me put it this way: there's a lot more important matters that
Hmm.
we need to take care of, and it would seem that no, banning the vape products is the number one in the agenda, other than the COVID response, the insurance for healthcare workers and whatnot. Um, by and large, I think our politicians, our local representatives, have a mind of their own. Um, and I will think I still believe that they will make regulations that are necessary and needed by the country at the moment. So I think it's just a last ditch effort by the department to salvage whatever they can from their end.
Now, the Department of Health wasn't the ones that engaged with Bloomberg, right? It was the FDA.
Yeah, but but they all go up in the same department anyways.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because it's interesting, Sam. I haven't forgotten you, darling. You know that. I have not
Right.
forgotten you. I just want to finish this thought. It's interesting to me that the people, who are giving a lot of money to the World Health Organization and tobacco control are the same people that tried to infiltrate the Department of Health and the FDA in the Philippines. I mean, and that was not received well in the Senate, if I remember correctly. So,
Correct.
yeah, it sounds to me, it's almost like the dinosaur, the last groan of the dinosaur. To just have their voices heard and maybe get some in the good graces of the World Health Organization. Now, Sam, how does that impact on you in Malaysia?
Right. Um, from the very beginning, the stand of our Ministry of Health has always been in line with the direction of the WHO, which is prohibition,
Hmm.
and that has been their stand all along. But I think one of the reason we do this, Nancy, is because we want to share our experience so that other countries who are facing the same challenges would be able to learn from what we have gone through. But having said that, probably every individual countries would have to study the the political situation in your own country, and what we've been doing all the while, which we thought seemingly the right thing to do, which was to talk and engage and educate the Ministry of Health in terms of the right thing to do, seems not to bear any positive results. Then we start to look into what other things can we do. So we start to, really talk to the Ministry of Finance. And if you were to look at the situation, I think, as what Peter was saying earlier on, be it in Philippines or Thailand or Indonesia or New Zealand or Australia, um, our our goals or our objectives seems not to be important because all these countries now globally are facing with the COVID pandemic, and that leads into economic problem. But interestingly enough, for Malaysia, uh, because of the COVID pandemic and also the economic situation that we are facing, um, the taxation of vape seems to be a big thing. Now suddenly we
Hmm.
see that people are falling over themselves to get this thing done. All of a sudden, so what can we take away from this is that we need to look at every individual countries, and probably the approach might not be the same because every individual countries are facing different sort of issues and challenges. Here in Malaysia, in particular, even though the stand of our Ministry of Health has always been in line with WHO, but suddenly they have changed because they see the need for them to tax. It's not really a health problem that they want to solve, but it's
Yeah.
really a financial problem that they want to solve. So, anyways, but we still get to achieve our objective. I would say that there's still a long way to go, but it's definitely a good step. Coming back to answering your question, whether we are going to be derailed over what's happening with COP, um, I I don't think so. Because we have spoken to the Ministry of Health, we have spoken to the Ministry of Finance. This seems to be very um, positive in getting it
Mhm.
regulated here in Malaysia.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing, and I've been wondering about this as well. I mean, here in New Zealand, it's regulated as a consumer product. And then meanwhile, obviously, across the ditch over there in Australia, it's a medical product. It all boils down to money. I mean, and in my mind, if we can get it regulated and get it available to people, even if it has a tax on it, that's okay because we do have to understand the economic impacts of this pandemic, and these governments, are crying out for cash, right? And
Right.
and in a way, when you think about it, and this is, I'm going to try to articulate this the right way. You've got a billionaire or you've got people with a lot of money that are willing to offer a lot of money to governments to do what they think is right, right? So it all boils down to money. In the
That's right.
Philippines, it backfired. Okay, and it backfired in a very big way. They've tried it in Mexico. That has also backfired, even though it's not a region, but it also backfired, in Pakistan, it also backfired. So I think we're beginning to see the realization of these health people, these people in the health departments, that A, they're proving they're not really about health, but B, they're also beginning to understand they have to do what's best for the people. And if they can do what's best for the people while at the same time generating more revenue, that's what they're going to do. And I don't think we should get caught up in this whole idea of, well, health, health, health. We have to, as when we advocate, and this is for everybody who's watching this, when we're advocating, we think about ourselves, right? We think about vape and we want access and all of the things that we want. But we have to look at it from their point of view and make it
Right.
palatable and relatable to them in order
Exactly.
to get them to listen to us.
That's right.
And I think, a discussion that we were all having earlier is like you said too, baby steps, toddler, running. I think that the tide is turning. And I think, the only thing that really concerns me in our region anyway is, we tend to take a lot of cues from the United States. And the United States has never ratified FCTC, but yet there's all these shenanigans going on in the States. And I find it very interesting that, the FDA, these companies are going up against the United States FDA and they're getting stays. So I think if we stay the course, I think we're going to get somewhere. But
Right.
that's require our representatives to go to these people and say, listen, this is what we're doing. We're doing this for our people. This is about us. And I just hope, I'm pretty sure New Zealand will, but I just hope that countries that have gone through this and gone through this process and are now realizing, hey, wait a minute, we can get revenue from this, are going to stand up and say, this is what we're going to do. And that will begin to kind of erode this whole control or influence, let's just say, of these foreign peoples in countries and also of the WHO. What are your
Right.
thoughts on that?
Right.
Peter?
The thing is that
Oh, sorry,
Go
Sam.
ahead, Samsul. Go ahead.
right. Okay, I'll take that first. Okay. I think the thing is that our representative is beginning to realize how huge this is in terms of tax revenue. Because in Malaysia, it's a $2 billion industry. I mean, 2 billion
Mm-hmm.
ringgit industry. So that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment when they realize that there's a return here, they're beginning to look at it from, as you said, Nancy, we have to look at it from their point of view. It can't be just about health, even though ultimately this is what we are doing and is what we are trying to achieve. But the moment when we sat down with the Ministry of Finance and we make them see that if you don't regulate this, it's still going to go on, and these are just going to be, leakages of income for the country, and it is a huge, huge industry here in Malaysia. It is a $2 billion industry at this point, and it is growing. If you were to see the smoking prevalence right now in Malaysia is going down, and vaping is going up. So right now, even though we have about 1 million vapers here in Malaysia, and the vaping prevalence is about 5%, and when we see the smoking prevalence going down and vaping prevalence going up, the opposite direction, we can see that the industry is just growing. This is the point that we drive through the Ministry of Finance. And when we speak in their language, they tend to understand, and that's what they see. And I guess going to COP later on, our delegates would I hope represent us in terms of what is important to the country and to the people of Malaysia.
Yeah. We actually have a question. I don't know. Peter, is that you dinging? Peter's a
No,
noisy guy tonight.
it's my laptop, my wife. So don't worry about it.
That's okay. Peter, go ahead. What's your take on
Uh,
that?
well, right now, just like what Sam said earlier, I think every government is struggling how to cope up with the finances that each government needs in order to sustain its operations. I think overall, they got to be able to take from whatever industry they can. Um, for example, here in the Philippines, I've had a couple of businesses. I've received letters from our taxation department, I'll call it the BIR here, asking us for an additional payment of taxes to defray the expenses of government. Um, so I think that's something that a wise people's representative should be considering at this moment, because you just simply have to balance it out. The science is there. For sure, there will be a lot of people who will not. It's not going to be a popular decision. I get that, but
Mhm.
a wise and a real leader would really have to balance it and see it from all angles and make that decision. I'm not saying he or she will be a love person, but it's a win-win situation. You regulate the
Yeah.
product, you generate income, and it helps
Mhm.
defray certain certain expenses for the government. Nancy, can I answer the question here on the taxation of vape products in the
Yes.
Philippines?
Yes.
Here in the Philippines, prior to the pandemic, there was no hard and fast rule on how to tax vape, vape nicotine products. However, um, I think it was in January of 2019 that the president signed into the law RA 11467.
Mhm.
Basically, that's the sin taxes. That's increasing the taxes on alcohol, cigarettes, whatnot. Without anything, the vape products were included in that particular law. I
Okay.
just don't have it in hand at hand right now, but pretty much it says that heated tobacco products, I think, will be taxed at 25 pesos, and it's on a per millimeter gauge that is getting taxed with an increase of 5% every year thereafter. So when that particular law was enacted, the consumers and the business group decided to act against it, because what are we gonna do? There's no clear regulation. You're just gonna tax us and all that. If you remember, Nancy, we've had here in the Philippines, the Department of Health was mandated to create an IRR, and we've had a
Yep.
long, tedious
Yep.
battle
Yep.
around it. And up until now, it is still hanging simply because we have a bill that has gone through the proper channels.
Mhm.
Because if you ask me what happened in RA 11467,
Yep.
simply was a rider. It was just placed in there. So right now, it's here. We have a bill right now that's currently on its third reading, I think. Hopefully, it gets
Okay.
passed. That's why it's still in limbo. It's just unfortunate that from what I heard from the business group, that certain products that they have imported are being impounded for not being able to comply with the regulations. But if you ask me, there are no regulations yet in place, at least not in black and white.
That brings up an interesting point. Sam, what's the regulatory framework going to look like in Malaysia? Do you have any idea?
Right, that's the thing. Down here, we are just talking about taxation. There's no clear framework on production regulation or on distribution regulation for retailing, the do's and don'ts for consumers. None of those. They're just talking about taxation. They're going to go for 1 ringgit 20 cent per milliliter and 10% on devices. That's about all that we have heard at this point. But
Okay.
again, as I said earlier on, it's still a big thing. But in terms of a clear framework, we don't have any news on that yet.
Okay. Do you think our countries, I don't know, I don't think New Zealand does its own thing usually. It's very progressive and they just like smile and nod and do what they're going to do. But um do you think that it's true though? I've assimilated. I'm kind of like that too. Um, do you think though that your countries, if they get excessive pressure from FCTC, that they may actually decide to break their I guess agreement to be a member of FCTC, or do you think they'll just do the whole smile and nod thing that New Zealand does?
You're asking me for
Either
Malaysia?
one. Pick it up. Yep.
Okay, see, right now, we are in a very interesting situation in terms of timing because next year is going to be an election year for Malaysia,
Okay.
and looking at 1 million vapers that we have here in Malaysia, that's a significant number. I I think they are still going to stick on the decision that they have made when they announced in the budget yesterday that they are going to tax or in a way going to regulate vape. So I think
Mm,
that's where the government is still going to 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 stand on this issue.
okay. Peter, what about the Philippines?
Uh, that's the problem. Eh. When you're a poor country, it doesn't really bode well if you get out of a treaty convention. See, you're a third world country. FCTC is the WHO framework. This is a treaty convention among parties, right? So
Hmm.
I doubt that that our government has the political will to renege. I mean, it's if you can't sustain your country to be, y- I really don't see our government doing that in the near future.
Okay.
Simply because I think um, we don't have the power to demand or to, if we do it, they will just say, okay, what gives? Fine. We have more to lose than to gain if we get out of it.
Okay. I mean, do you get money? Does the Philippines get money from the FCTC, from the WHO?
Well, I don't know that exactly, but with the way things are, the certain departments are moving, uh, I certainly think that there's some motivation around the things that they're doing right now. I mean, the
I
fact
think
that they're
it,
sending a lot of. Go ahead.
I think it's the other way around, right, Nancy? I think it's the conference of parties who are funding the SCTC, correct?
They're supposed to be the way it was set up is that they were supposed to be getting money from the World Bank, and also countries were supposed to be contributing to it. But there are also some countries that actually receive money from them.
Oh, okay. As far as I
Yeah.
know, we have not the government has not received any funding from the FCTC, so we can somewhat be independent in our voice. I would hope, and we'll talk to the delegates to make sure that our objectives and our rights are represented. That's what's important.
That brings this up. I mean, this going back to what I said in the beginning about the W Pro tobacco, they had a committee meeting, right? And even though it was officially put in the COP9 agenda that there would be no discussions or debates around tobacco harm reduction or safer nicotine products, there was a point in that agenda where they said that countries could submit reports on the topic that would be included as part of the record. So the thing that I found interesting, and I sent you guys copies of this, is they really went through on safer nicotine products and discussing it and how what they were going to present. Of course, we don't know what they're going to say, but it seems to be, they're still going to be hammering that home. So it's almost like it's set up like a backroom deal that everybody, each of these regions, W Pro, Zero, European, whatever, they're all going to come up with a backroom plan, submit that thing in at FCTC COP 9, and then come out with the report at the end, even though they're saying nothing official is going to happen until the following COP after this one. And that's a concern because, and I don't think people realize, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of this kind of work happens behind the scenes and we don't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not just us, it could very well be, even the climate change that's going on over in Glasgow right now. So, my point, I guess, what I'm trying to say is that, you know, it might not seem like a big deal to a lot of other people because they're not vapors and they're not smokers, but I think people need to understand that what they're doing to us is definitely something. Screen changed. Hello. Um, is something that could happen to them. It could impact them down the road. I mean, we have to kind of hammer that home as well. I just, it's hard. It's a hard call. I talk to people in Australia and they're so frustrated and they don't understand and the people don't listen. The government people don't listen and the Minister of Health doesn't listen. So how did we get our people to do that? What did you have to do, I guess, to be able to engage with these people and make them listen? Did that make sense what I
Um,
was saying? I hope.
yes. Nancy, like what we've discussed way back, it's a constant struggle. Um, with the changes. Like Sam, I've been at it for maybe a good 8 to 10 years already. So you got to deal with different personalities, different politics. You just have to continuously grow your base, meaning those people who support your advocacy. That has to be consistent. That's one. You got to keep on adding at least a new person every time you can that will support your advocacy. Second is I just continue to engage certain politicians or certain uh, political official who I think would be helpful. For example, there has to be a Philippine senator that will support your there has to be a Philippine senator that will support your advocacy, or a Philippine congressman, because that's where it will start. One in Senate and one in Congress. So you always have to identify that, especially in there's a new regime. And lastly, the power of social media. You gotta grow your presence. You gotta show the regulators or the politicians that there's a group of individuals who are actually advocating for this. There's the science behind it. We vote, and we simply will not stop with what we believe in. So that's what we're doing, Nancy.
How do we build allies though in the community outside of the vaping community?
In our end, the one of the biggest struggle I had at the onset is that even those different groups that are, although it's within the vape community, but are parts of different business groups, they still fight amongst themselves. First and foremost, um, within the vapors community, you just have to remind everybody that we're all in it together. We're going through the same. Uh, we want to go ahead and see the same final finished product. As to
Yep.
outside, you have to broaden the spectrum. The spectrum. You have to broaden the spectrum. Um, you cannot be limited to simply vaping, smoking. The the wide arcing purpose more is on harm reduction. So
Yep.
we can partner with certain organizations who advocate the same, and maybe we can just find that common point and rally from there, so we can start adding people.
Now I changed the ticker because I want to talk about scope, and I want you guys to tell everybody what they will get from participating in our scope live stream. I'll briefly, for those that don't know, we are running a 5-day 24-hour a day live stream during the virtual COP9 from the 8th to the 12th of November. And we've set up the programming so that you get to meet the consumer advocates, and it's not just Asia Pacific, it's global. And you get to meet people from different groups from around the world, hear their stories, talk to some medical people that are pro THR, and just basically educate yourself and understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and why it's so important. So I'd like the boys to finish up and let us know, each of you, tell me what what this means to you that we're doing this, and what you hope people will get from it. Sam?
Right. Before that, I would just like to add on to what Peter said earlier on. Yeah, of course, everything what Peter said, we have to keep
Mm-hmm.
on at it, and we have to broaden our base. But then again, the thing here is that how do we get the voters to care? How do we
Yeah.
change their mind? This is the thing here, right? So the approach that we take here in Malaysia is that, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, most of the elected representatives are smokers. Okay,
Yeah.
they smoke cigarettes, so we try to make ourselves closer to them, and we convert them. One of the strategies that we adopt is to make sure that we are the testimonies, we are the story, we are the success stories. But here in Malaysia, we go one step further, where we make the elected representative as the success story of
Yeah.
people who are able to quit smoking. So we see them, we became friends, we became close to all the elected representatives, the members of parliament, and most of them are smokers. And we just shove a vape device in their face and get them to try. So
Hmm.
it seems to work though. They've taking it up, and they have stopped smoking, and they are absolutely on board with this. So one of the advantage that we have now in Malaysia is that you got to understand the dynamics of politics here in Malaysia. Most of the elected representative, the members of parliament, they are political warlords. They are very, very powerful, and their voice counts. So if they were to instruct the delegates from for this COP, these people would listen. So we put ourselves to be closer to them, and we make them the story or a success story of people who are able to quit smoking. So that's what we did. Now coming back to scope, I would really very much like for everyone to get involved and see what's going on, because I think it's very, very important. These are the voice of the consumers. In the end, why we are able to achieve what we have done so far is also because of persistence, and also because we have the numbers. You know, um, uh, the numbers matter. It counts. So whether they like it or not, they can only ignore us for so long, and now they're not ignoring us anymore. So we would like to urge for everyone to get on board. Get involved, be part of Move, be part of HRA, and together we can make our voice stronger, so that we can be better represented when our delegates go on the COP night.
Thanks, Sam. Peter,
Right.
what do you want people to get out of it?
Ah, Scope will run from November 8th to November 12th, I think. Sam and I will be there, Nancy. Basically, everybody is very, very, very passionate about the vaping and how it has helped us individually. Basically, why I want people to hopefully attend, listen, and watch what we have in store for them is because it will make them understand that it's not one voice, it has
Mm,
one message, but it is a voice that's emanating from different millions of individuals from all walks of life. Here, an advocate would feel that you are not alone. Here,
mm.
if you're an advocate, you will realize that our time is now. And here, you will learn best practices from the best advocates in the world. So I'm really hoping to see a lot of you guys there.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see a bunch of people there too. And I think the thing that makes it really important too, and I want to make this point, is that advocates will be speaking in their native languages. So not everything is going to be in English. So, Peter will be giving his, he'll be doing a panel, I think, for 5 days. And I think he'll be doing that in Filipino. And Sam's got a time slot. He's going to be doing it in Bahasa. We've
Right.
got Asa, who will be doing it in Thai. We've got Mirza, who will be doing it in Urdu. So, we tried to make it as inclusive and including everybody and bringing everybody together because, when I first started doing this a long, long time ago, it was a very lonely journey. And I know that there are still a lot of advocates that are out there that, are doing the hard yards on their own and they feel alone. And I hope that people realize once they see this and they can participate too. I got to point that out. Everybody, participate. We can even bring you into the room if we want, to talk.
Right.
Um, we're one big dysfunctional family, like I always say. But we are, and there's things that I can teach and there's things that I can learn, and I'm hoping I learn a lot. I'm hoping that I will get a broader understanding, and I hope everybody else gets that as well. Any final thoughts?
Well, I just want to say that what we do is very important, even though sometimes at times it gets tiring and frustrating. But we just need to remind ourselves what we do is important because it saves lives.
Yeah,
That's all I want to say. Yeah, save lives.
yeah, perfect. Peter,
Um, how do you top that?
I know you don't.
well,
I know.
I'm just I just want to say thank you for having me, Nancy, Sam. I hope to see everybody on Scope on November 8 to 12. Let's learn together, guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. And guys, the link's there, and you can find it also on the CAPHRA Facebook page. We're directing everybody, just as an FYI, we're directing everybody to the YouTube page because Facebook's being a little cheeky lately. So this way, if you go straight to the YouTube link, you'll be able to see it and there won't be any issues with accessibility or anything. So on that note, I'd like to thank Sam and I'd like to thank Peter for joining me tonight. And I think we had a really
You're
good
most welcome.
conversation.
Right.
And I'd like to thank the audience for joining us. And we will see you guys at Scope. So y'all stay safe and be well. And we will see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.